In a world where trade wars have become the new normal and tariffs have turned into weapons, India has made a move no analyst had seriously predicted. A country that not long ago was considered a key US ally in Asia suddenly sided openly with China. After Donald Trump announced 100% tariffs on Chinese goods, on top of the tariffs already imposed on Indian products, New Delhi was faced with a choice: either submit to American pressure or defend its own interests, even if it meant betraying an old ally. India chose the latter. According to the Wall Street Journal, this decision became a turning point for the entire security and trade architecture of Asia. What happened in early October is already being called the Asian Shift. At a closed-door summit in Shanghai, the Indian delegation led by the foreign minister signed a strategic partnership agreement with China that provides for mutual economic support under external pressure. In effect, this means India is now ready to coordinate its trade and technological measures with Beijing against Washington. Reuters, citing sources in China's foreign ministry, reports that the talks had been underway since late August, and India's key demand was access to Chinese supplies of rare earth minerals and high-tech components. For many in Washington, this came as a shock. Only a few years ago, India was seen as the main counterbalance to China in Asia, and a member of Quad, the strategic alliance between the United States, Japan, Australia, and India, aimed at containing Beijing. But that alliance has effectively collapsed. The Economist notes that many blame Donald Trump for this outcome. His decision to impose tariffs on Indian goods, ranging from pharmaceuticals and textiles to software, was seen in New Delhi as a betrayal. According to the official White House version, these measures were meant to restore fairness in the trade balance. Trump claimed India had abused trade benefits, exporting goods to the American market without opening its own in return. But in New Delhi, this was seen as an insult. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who had spent a decade building bridges with Washington, did not hide his frustration. According to the Hindustan Times, at a closed meeting he stated, "America cannot treat India like a junior partner. We will not be a colony of the 21st century." India's response came swiftly. Just a week after the tariffs were imposed, New Delhi announced it was withdrawing from several joint programs with the United States, including deliveries of military electronics and satellite components. Moreover, India canceled several large orders for Boeing aircraft and froze talks on building a Tesla plant in the country. It was a clear signal. The relationship was breaking down. China quickly seized the opportunity. Beijing offered India a new framework for cooperation, an energy and technology alliance under which both countries would gain access to each other's resources and technologies. The day after the agreement was signed, Xi Jinping and Modi held a historic video conference in which, for the first time in many years, they spoke not of conflict, but of mutual strategic benefit. China pledged more than $80 billion of investment in India, including the construction of lithium processing plants, solar panel facilities, and electric vehicle component factories. According to Nikkei Asia, the core of the agreement is a clause on mutual support in the event of economic pressure from third countries. Behind this diplomatic language lies a simple truth. India has officially backed China in its trade confrontation with the United States. For the American administration, this came as a shock. A Brookings Institution report stated that Washington underestimated the depth of nationalism and pragmatism within India's elite. Unlike Europe, India does not depend on the United States for its security. It has its own army, its own economy, and a growing population that makes it the world's largest democracy. And now, this democracy has decided it is more profitable to side with Beijing than with Washington. In response to these developments, global markets reacted instantly. The Indian rupee strengthened, the Chinese yuan stabilized, and American indexes, by contrast, went into the red. Bloomberg reports that for the first time in 20 years, investors began shifting capital en masse into Asian funds, believing that the future of global industry now lies in the East, not the West. At the same time, a political storm erupted in the United States. Congress accused Trump of using tariff diplomacy to dismantle long-standing alliances. The Democratic Party leader declared that the president single-handedly destroyed the U.S.-Asian strategy. Even within Republican circles, doubts are growing. According to Politico, some senators consider the sanctions against India a geopolitical act of self-destruction. Meanwhile, India is undergoing historic changes. Across the country, rallies in support of independent economic policy are taking place. National TV networks display slogans, "India chooses Asia, not America." Universities are discussing the idea of creating a new Asian century in which India and China would act as equal partners. On the international stage, New Delhi has begun to behave with new confidence. At the United Nations, Indian diplomats for the first time voted together with China against U.S. proposals for sanctions on Iran. It was an unprecedented step that confirmed the collapse of the alliance. Al Jazeera noted that for the first time, India and China are acting as a single diplomatic bloc. But the most troubling sign for the United States lies elsewhere. India has started talks on joining China's CIPS payment system, an alternative to SWIFT designed to bypass American sanctions. If this happens, the world's largest democracy will effectively leave the financial orbit of the West. It would be a disaster for the dollar. According to the Financial Times, Trump held an emergency meeting with the Treasury Secretary and the National Security Advisor. The agenda was simple: how to bring India back. But according to sources, all the options on the table seem too late. The White House does not hide its frustration. One official told reporters, "We bet on India, and now it is playing against us." Meanwhile, China and India have already begun implementing joint projects. In Gujarat, construction has started on the first joint semiconductor plant, funded by Chinese corporation SMIC. In India, this is presented as a victory for national sovereignty. In China, it is seen as a strategic breakthrough. And in the United States, it is called a betrayal. CNN reports that alarm is growing in the Pentagon. India occupies a key geographic position. It controls the Indian Ocean, through which major trade routes between Europe and Asia pass. If India decides to limit the U.S. Navy's presence in the region, it would deal a massive blow to American military strategy. According to Rand Corporation analysts, the new Beijing-Delhi axis could become the most powerful alliance in decades. The two countries, which together account for more than one-third of the world's population, are uniting not out of affection, but out of pragmatism. What binds them is their shared discontent with Trump and his policy of economic pressure. Here lies the irony of history. The very tool Trump considered his greatest asset, tariffs, has turned against him. He sought to break China and discipline India, but instead he brought them together. Now the United States faces an unprecedented threat: the rise of a powerful Asian bloc capable of challenging it not only economically but also politically. Meanwhile, behind the scenes at the IMF, economists are already discussing scenarios of a new division of the world. They warn that if China and India merge their production chains, the United States could lose up to 20% of its share of global GDP within the next decade. According to the World Bank outlook, this shift would reshape the entire global financial architecture. Meanwhile, Trump, as always, chooses offense. He declared that India is making a huge mistake and promised severe consequences. But this time, his words sound uncertain. The world has changed. The United States is no longer the only center of power. India, which for years balanced between Washington and Beijing, has finally made its choice. And now, according to Asia Times analysts, the world is entering an era of dual east, where China provides technology and India provides people, markets, and political legitimacy. As the Financial Times notes, this moment could become a historic turning point. The world where America dictated the rules is fading into the past. A new era is emerging, an era in which India and China together shape the rules of the game, an era in which tariffs, originally intended as a tool of pressure, have become the spark that ignited a geopolitical revolution.